Hi everyone, I'm Casey Uhlenhout. I'm a program manager on the .NET team here at Microsoft.
And I'm Allison Buchholz-Al, and I'm also a program manager, but on the Visual Studio platform team.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're about to give you a whirlwind tour of everything that's come out, well, not everything, but most things that have come out since Visual Studio 2017 RTW'd. And for those of you who didn't know this, which hopefully you do, Visual Studio 2017 version 15.7 just released on Monday, and 15.8 preview 1 came out as well. So we're going to, in this talk, go through a ton of things that have happened since Visual Studio 2017 first released all the way up to 15.8 preview 1.
Cool. And to set the stage, we just want to share with you guys sort of 3 of our top goals that we've really been focusing on as a team for the past year. We believe that every developer should be productive in Visual Studio right away. You shouldn't have to download extra extensions to get those basic things that you need and love to be productive. Performance has been a key priority. Every second that you spend dealing with a crash or a hang is a second away from really building the important software that you're working on. And we have really tried to make sure that performance is better than ever in these latest releases. And finally, in our industry, it's been a worldwide industry, and more increasingly, people are working with people across the room, across the campus, maybe even across different countries. And so how we empower you to collaborate seamlessly will only become more important as time moves on. So what are we showing you today? Honestly, it's a bunch of demos. We're not lying there. It's going to be demo after demo after demo. But to provide a little bit more context there, here's some general themes that you can look for. We're going to look at how you can navigate and search your code. We're going to look at code style enforcement, improvements around testing and debugging. Again, collaboration is key here. And finally, we're going to look at refactorings, code fixes, and things that we've added to the editor and IntelliSense. We're going to try and leave time for some Q&A at the end, but Casey and I will be around afterwards, so feel free to come talk to us if we happen to run over a little bit. So, Casey.
Yeah, as Allison was saying, both Allison and I and our teams have been reaching out to tons of developers, even maybe some of you in the audience, about how we can improve your productivity. And from these talks, we discovered, well, we kind of already knew, that the #1 priority is performance. And so what have we done in Visual Studio 2017 to improve performance? The first thing we've done is we've completely changed how we do solution load to make it a ton faster. So in this video, we're going to show what solution load looks like for the Roslyn solution, which the Roslyn solution has over 160 projects in it. It's over 1 million lines of code. On the left, I believe that's your left, we're going to show 15.0, so what just came out a year ago. And on the right, we're going to show what just came out in 15.7 for solution load times. And as we continue, the right-hand side in 15.7, which just came out Monday, it's going to load this huge solution in 15 seconds, which is 4.5 times faster than it was when we first launched Visual Studio 2017. So we're really serious about performance. We even have flown out to some of our customers and worked with them on site to figure out how we can improve performance. All right, so now that we have done that, let's go. All right. Corgis.
Sorry, one moment, please. Oh, God. All right, guys, we've got some really cool AV setup here, so give me 1 second to figure this out.
Stay cool, guys.
Yeah, so when you're doing some really cool stuff like us, we'll be merging our screens later live. It requires the use of this awesome thing called an Elgato.
And I think, yeah, just share that. Can you flip over to it?
All right, and
Perfect.
Here we are.
All right, so on the same theme of performance was another thing that we have done. I'm going to open up the solution I have right here. It's an Alexa skill I wrote. It helps me figure out when the bus comes in the morning so I can get to work. And as I open the Test Explorer, we've vastly improved unit test discovery in Visual 2017, especially in 15.6. I almost can't even demo it enough, sorry. But it basically loaded, if you saw really quickly in Test Explorer, it loaded over 5,000 tests in seconds, which is way faster than unit test discovery has ever been. And so we're super excited and we're like really serious about improving performance in Visual Studio 2017, and we want to know if you have issues with performance, and we'll show you links later where you can come out and reach to us if you're not having good performance in Visual Studio. The other thing you're probably noticing here is that Test Explorer looks a little bit different. And what we've done is we've added a hierarchy view in here where you can organize your unit tests by project, namespace, and then class. And this allows you to figure out which set of tests you need to run and organize them a bit better. It's one of the top requests you will have asked besides unit test performance for us to do in the Test Explorer. I'm just going to right click and go ahead and run the test in this class. As I do this, we also have added responsive icons in the Test Explorer, so you can see as tests were pending, they turn into little clocks. If you have a long-running test, it will become a swirly, I don't even know what to call it, a swirly circle. To let you know that that's a long-running test and that's continuing to run as your other tests have returned results. So you can identify what those long-running tests are. Huge bummer. Looks like I have 2 failing tests here. So I'm just going to double-click on the first one and see what's going on. Nothing's obvious, so I'm just going to right-click anywhere inside this test and debug it. So I've now hit a breakpoint, which hopefully many of you know about all the debugging shortcuts. I'll just quickly go through the ones that I use. F10 is step over, so you can just continue to step over lines. As I debug, per usual in Visual Studio, you can hover over things and see what their values are. And as I hover over, you may notice that there is this green play button here. This is run to click. It's a new feature we added in Visual Studio 2017. Run to click lets you, if you have your hand on the mouse already and you want to run your execution to this point, you can, rather than having to pull the instruction pointer or find where it is, you can just click and it's going to run your execution to there. Now that I'm here, I'm going to see I have this method call to external library. So Bus Helper is an external library. I can confirm that by jumping over to Solution Explorer. Over here, I can look under my dependencies node, and under NuGet, I can zoom in here to show you, but Bus Helpers is one of my dependencies that I have. And what if something in my test is failing because of this external library? Like, what if it's happening inside this external library? Or what if I even want to figure out what's going on in here? Like, what does convert milliseconds to UTC, which I did name that pretty nicely, I think. But just in case you're like, oh, she probably did some crazy stuff in there, how do I find out what's inside? And in Visual Studio 2017 version 15.6, we worked with the ILSpy team to build in the ILSpy decompiler. So now you can use go to definition, which F12 is here, and it will decompile your source code, or this external source, to show you not only method signatures, but now method bodies. So now I can see all my method body in here, see how it's implemented. You do have to turn this on. It is not on by default. You can turn it on by going to Tools, Options, Text Editor, C#, Advanced, which all the good stuff is under Advanced. And here we go. Enable navigation to decompiled sources. And if you check that, then we'll allow you to do that. In this case, we usually have a legal disclaimer that pops up that's saying that you're acknowledging that you have accountability if you decompile the sources, that you have the authority to do so. But once you accept that, we will decompile it. But what would be even better than decompiling the source is if we could see the real source. And in Visual Studio 2017, we've worked with SourceLink to allow you to actually step in. We will download your external code from GitHub or VSTS and allow you to step inside of it. So here, I've come to this point, I've hit it, and now I can step inside with F11. And as I do so, SourceLink, our SourceLink integration, is saying, do you want to download and continue debugging? So do you want to download this external source from GitHub? Heck yes, so we're gonna click yeah, and boom, there I am inside of my external source library here. I can confirm that this is actually it by going over to my bus helpers And sure enough, here is my exact source code that appears inside Visual Studio that's on my GitHub page. The other thing that's sort of neat in here is I'm looking at a specific commit here. Your Git URL or VSTS URL and your commit SHA will be inside of your external library's new spec file, so you know exactly what version of the source is that you are stepping inside. In order for you to enable this, it only works with SDK style projects. So if you are a library author and you have a project that's like SDK style, you can just add a couple, actually I can show you here real quick. You can just add a couple tags to your CS proj file, and it will enable people who consume your package who are in Visual Studio 2017 15.3 or higher to download your source and step inside. So to go back to the main awesomeness of this feature is now I'm stepping inside my external source. I can continue to step. I can see how my program is interfacing with this external library. And so I can hover over, see what values are in different locations, and I can actually confirm that, nothing is going wrong in here. So I'm just gonna keep on stepping. And so as I keep on stepping, trying to figure out why this test is failing, I hover over my total minutes, and I can see that, whoa, I didn't round. Oh, I missed that zoom. But you can just tell like how long that is. Yeah, so I'm expecting a rounded number. I didn't round, so let's just quickly fix this. Gonna come in here, map.round, delta dot total minutes, then come down here, give it my rounded, which I misspelled that, which is a bummer. And we also offer this neat refactoring. Oh, bummer, I have to learn how to zoom better. Let's see, control dot will access this, come down here. Oh, Jesus, okay. Well, hopefully you can see in the back, but if not, apologies. It's saying that I can now, it's gonna offer to spell check my variables that I have already in my document. So it knows that I have something that's similar to rounded, and it's gonna offer to change that for me. So now it's spelled correctly. Now I'm gonna do as traditionally we do, and I'm just gonna go back to my Test Explorer and run that test I knew was failing to see if it's now passing after making this change. And again, we should see those responsive icons letting me know that test is pending a run, or that it's running, and sure enough, it's gonna update and show that the test is now passing. A subtle but important thing to notice here is that usually Test Explorer, when it was just the long list, it would show all of your failed tests at the top and then have your passing ones at the bottom. And you all, when we reached out to you all about this, said, oh, you hated that because you would have looked at that test, it would have passed, and it would have jumped somewhere else in the list, and you would have lost track of it. Now we keep it in the same spot, we keep it alphabetically, so you can keep track of what's passing and failing. So a quick recap of everything you just saw was, thank you. You saw we're serious about performance. We vastly improved solution load time and unit test discovery times. We enabled navigation to decompiled sources, so we partnered with the IL-SPY team. We're still continuing to work with them to build in that decompiler so that you can see not just method signatures, but also method bodies now. And we have worked with SourceLink. So for SDK-style projects, you can download external source when debugging from GitHub or VSTS and step inside your real source. Back to Visual Studio. All right. So I still have a test failing. So again, gonna double click on this, figure out what's going on. But today's my lucky day because I can look at CodeLens and see that Allison touched this last. So rather than owning up and trying to figure out what this is, I'm just gonna call up Allison and see if she'll help me debug it. Allison.
Hey Casey, what's up?
I have a test failing in here. It looks like you added it, so can you help me debug through this, please?
All right, I can definitely give it a shot. I haven't quite come into work yet. You sort of caught me during breakfast, but thankfully I have my personal laptop and I've got VS Code on it. So why don't we go ahead and start a live share session so that I don't have to set up my Visual Studio with all the proper workloads and things. Go ahead and click that share button in the top right-hand corner of Visual Studio. Grab that link and send it to me on Teams. How did you know it was me, by the way?
I looked at Handy Dandy Code Lens. It let me know it was you.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you know or these lovely people know, but we're actually allowing Code Lens to be publicly extensible in the coming months. We've heard a lot of feedback from many of you that you'd like to add different source control integration to Code Lens, so we're actually opening that up to allow you guys to do that. As well, with this change, we are porting the references lens down into community. So for community members, you'll also be able to take advantage of the references code lens coming soon. So what Casey did in the background here, if you let me switch this over through the magic of that cool AV setup I had to deal with earlier. We're opening VS Code here. So Casey is in the office working on Visual Studio. I'm actually working in VS Code. And as I mentioned before, I don't have any of the environment settings or the enlistments. I don't have the same workloads installed that she does because I don't have workloads.
Visual Studio.
Yeah, I don't even have Visual Studio on here. But the great thing about LiveShare, it's going to allow me to look at her entire project context. It's going to let me navigate independently, edit code, debug, all of those great things that we would normally do in a debugging session with our teammates, but from the comfort of my own tools. So I'm actually going to split this to a merge split screen here so that you guys can follow along with what's going on both my screen and Casey's screen. Ta-da! Let me make a few adjustments so that you can see everything.
How we are.
Pop.
I'm on
I know.
Oh, wait, no. Yeah, am I on your right? I'm on
Yeah,
your right? Yeah,
we're good.
Cool,
We're good. So,
happy accident.
Happy accidents. If only Bob Ross were here. So, as you see here, Casey was working around. I seem to have lost her, so I'm just going to follow her so that she can explain to me what's going on. So, Casey, I see that you're in test get arrivals null. You've highlighted that. Is this just the test that's failing?
Yeah, this is the test that you added. I got no idea what's going on.
Okay, all right, let's see what's going on here. So just like I would in Visual Studio or VS Code, I'm gonna go ahead and hit F12 here to go to definitions for this get arrivals time. I'm gonna wrap this so that we can read it a little easier. And as we see here, we already have a breakpoint here. With LiveShare, I can both remove and re-add breakpoints as I'd like so that I don't have to tell Casey, oh, add a breakpoint at this line. As you see, I don't have line numbers, so that would be sort of hard. So now that we've added our breakpoint, why don't we go ahead and start debugging to figure out what's going on, Casey?
Debugging session started.
Yeah, so as you can see, the debugging session has started on Casey's machine. Almost immediately on my VS Code instance, you'll see we get our locals, our watch, our call stack. I'm going to go ahead and close those so that we get a little more real estate. As well, we've got these quick actions for debugging up here on the top. So as I scroll down, and let me follow Casey, because she's where we'd like to be, we can step over, we can step into, we can keep stepping as much as we'd like. And lo and behold, I also get the exception helper that shows up in VS Code, even though everything is running on Casey's machine. She gets it, I get it, everyone's happy. We've added this new exception helper in Visual Studio 2017 so that you don't have to dig through all your exception dialogues, figure out where to set the right breakpoint so that you can see what caused this exception. We show the important things, as Casey said, right there. So we know that our variable lat was in fact null. So now that we know what's wrong, let's go ahead and fix this. Casey, can you turn on live unit testing for me? I know that you have a tendency to search around for your tests and run them individually, and I really think live unit testing is going to help you out here. For those of you who aren't familiar with live unit testing, it's a great way to be able to not have to hunt around for your test to run. It's actually going to figure out which tests are affected by changes in your code base choose that selection of tests and run them in the background automatically for you. You'll see on Casey's screen here, we actually have 3 different icons that are now showing up in the left-hand margin of her screen. You've got that red X, which indicates that this line of code has at least one failing test. If you see here, as you click on it, it will actually tell you all of the tests that cover that line of code and which one is failing. The green check indicates that all of them are passing. In this case, we also have that clock icon because she's running more tests in the background. And finally, that blue dash, which indicates that this line of code isn't covered by any tests at all. So it might be best practice to go back and add something at some point, Casey.
This is why I don't live share with Allison. She just tells me to write more tests.
It's a good thing. Cool. So now that we have live unit testing set up, you'll be able to see in pretty much real time if these changes are actually helping you or hurting you. So I'm going to go ahead and add a nice null check in here. And we're just going to use string. Great thing about live share as well is we actually use remote language services in order to propagate things like IntelliSense. So again, I don't have any of the same workloads that Casey has, and yet I'm still getting IntelliSense to help me out here. So we'll do string dot. And another interesting thing, for those of you who saw the Future of VS talk earlier this week on Monday, these little stars in the corner and right here for IntelliSense indicate that Casey also has the Visual Studio IntelliCode extension installed, which I do not, but I'm still benefiting from everything that Casey's got on her machine. So I could continue to type.
We'll talk more about IntelliCode in a sec.
Yeah, so hang tight. So I could continue to type this all out, but I'm actually going to take a shortcut because I like to work smarter, not harder. So I'm going to go up here to lat, which we know is null. You should notice that we have that little light bulb pop up. With control dot, you'll see that I can easily add a null check. This is just the first of many refactorings that we've added, and we're adding more and more all the time. We'll take you on sort of a tour de source later on of the latest and greatest refactorings, but this is the first one. So you'll notice I added the null check there, and it showed up on Casey's screen. I added the second one here, and without even having to save my file, you should have noticed that live unit testing realized which tests were affected. It's running them in the background, and now it actually shows that all of Casey's tests are passing for
Allison,
this portion of
fixed all my
code.
problems. Thanks, Allison.
Yeah. So just a quick recap before we get back to Casey. We showed you CodeLens. We're super excited to make this publicly extensible. You'll get more info about that in the coming months. Live share is awesome, and we hope you guys will really utilize it. The public preview is available now. You do need 15.6 or greater. We'll have reference things at the end. As well, you saw our new exception helper, live unit testing, which is an enterprise-only feature, and the first of many refactorings with our null check. And with that, we'll pass it back over to Casey.
All right, so I'm back in Visual Studio. I'm going to end my collaboration session with Allison.
You're welcome.
Thank you, you're the best. And so it turns out when I was testing out this app on my own to see when my next bus was coming, it was giving me times for the stop that wasn't closest to me. So I probably did something silly, knowing me, so I'm just gonna use Control-T to quickly navigate to wherever I've written a method where I'm getting the location or stops for my location. Control-T is your one-stop shop for navigating to any file, type, member, or symbol declaration from a single location. For those of you who can't see in the back, I'll zoom in real quick to show you. This is what Control-T is. You can also scope your results in here by current document with this icon as well. So if you only want to find file members, you can then filter by members and then click this icon or use the shortcut for it to scope it only to current document. So from here, I know I want a member, so I'm going to use our query syntax by typing M to filter it to members. We also, though, for those of you who use member search or file search a lot, we have specific keyboard shortcuts for each of these. My zooming skills are failing today. Apologies, but you can do edit, go to, and we have specific keyboard shortcuts for each of these, for go to file, go to type, go to member, go to symbol, and you can rebind them to whatever you want. So if you want go to type to be Control-T, you can rebind that. If you want go to file to be Control-N, you can rebind that as well. So now that I'm in here, I'm going to use the query syntax because that's what I prefer. Type M to filter it to members only. And I know I have some method that's like get location or something along those lines. When I do that, I can see there's only 3 methods that are like that. I'm going to navigate to the second one. And sure enough, here it is, the culprit. I'm getting all my stops, and I'm just grabbing the first one. Classic. So rather than doing this, I'm going to try to calculate the distance between the user location and all the stops returned and figure out which one has the smallest distance, and then return that one instead. To do that, I'm going to try to figure out what that minimum distance is. I'm going to use handy dandy link. So I'm going to, from my stops, I'm going to, stops. I'm going to select, and then I'm going to add a new method to that GeoHelpers class that I had called something like, I don't know, calculate distance formula. And from here, I'm going to give it my latitude. I'm going to give it my stops latitude. I'm going to give it my longitude, and then my stops longitude. We're then going to grab the minimum, and that's going to give me my minimum distance there. And then I'm just going to go back through. Nope. My bad. Min. Yep. Okay. That was code snippets, by the way. You can write your own custom code snippets in Visual Studio. You've been able to do that for a while. So I wrote my own, so you don't have to watch me go back through every stop and then see which one had that minimum distance in it. And I have this error here because I have this extra min_dist stop. For those of you who don't know the keyboard shortcuts for comment and uncomment, I have a trick for you. You just got to remember me. So my name is Casey, and the shortcut for commenting is Control-KC, which is my name. And my full name is Casey Uhlenhout, which is KU, and conveniently, my initials are uncomment, so Control-KU will uncomment the line. I swear I did not do that. It just happened that way. But should you have trouble remembering, you just gotta remember me. Okay, so now I'm here. I'm gonna come down to calculate distance formula because I have a squiggle. You'll notice the light bulb has a little red X on it. We've changed the icons based on feedback that we've gotten from you all. It turns out when we showed light bulbs, we turned it on for whenever there's a refactoring or a code fix available, you would see it. Which then, change method signature is available on every method signature. And so people were like, oh, well, the light bulb to me meant this was something I needed to fix now, whereas change method signature is something I can do at any point in time. And so to communicate this to you all, we've used the light bulb to mean it will fix a code fix at the warning or suggestion level. The light bulb with the red X means it'll fix an error. And then we have a screwdriver, which some people think looks like a paintbrush. Either or will show you where refactorings are available. So again, control dot is the single thing that you can use for all of those. I'm going to generate this method. For those of you who use productivity power tools, I'm here for you. You can now press Control, and we will make anything into a hyperlink, and you can click to go to definition. So if your hand's already on the mouse, you can now click Control, click, and we'll take you to go to definition. You don't have to take your hand back off to F12 or anything. Or if you're bizarre like me, once the hand is on the mouse, you can't cross over with the left hand to hit F12. It's only a right hand action. So if that's you, we got you covered. So for those of you who are cringing right now because my arguments are sort of crazy like this, we will now, you can always do that change method signature. So you can see I have the little paintbrush screwdriver icon here. I can access that for refactoring, and now I can put my 2 string pairs together and then my other one together as well. This should be a double. I messed something up, but that's all right. I'll fix it in a sec. Now that I'm in here, it's time to channel my inner middle schooler and do the distance formula. And so now that, well, even though technically it's latitude and longitude, I have been since told I can't use that, but it's close enough that it's linear or whatever. So anyways, now that I'm here, I'm going to type math dot, and to help me type quickly, as well as explore the members of math efficiently, I have installed Visual Studio IntelliCode. Visual Studio IntelliCode is our first foray into answering how can AI-assisted technology help us improve developer productivity. And so what we've done here is I have the IntelliCode extension, which currently enhances completion. And in completion, you'll notice that there's now these 5 starred items. And these represent recommendations from our machine learning model on what we think you want to use in your current context. And so it is extremely contextual based. So you'll see here I have this sorting. If I were to make just a small change to my context, like make this from var into a double, now when I dot off math, I'm going to get an entirely different order of my members here. So if I zoom back in to show you, now square root is at the top. So it's extremely contextual based to help you find what you need faster. So sure enough, I do need the square root. And then as I dot off math again, it's just going to try to get more, or it's going to get more and more accurate as you continue typing. So here, what I wanted was second because I need to square something. And then now as I do the double, it now knows the only option here in my context. So inside of a power call, inside of a square root, the only thing that you would dot off double and get in this context based off what we know is parse, which is correct. So I'm now going to parse. And we even go the next step in IntelliCode, and we will resort your, we will resort your overload info here to show the most popular, most recommended based on your context, overload first. So it's telling me, here I have, oh, nope, okay, let's try that again. Control KP, by the way, triggers parameter info, if you were wondering. Now zoom back in, click. Now, if I come here, we can see that there's 4 overloads of parse, and IntelliCode right here is telling me that this is the one with the string argument. It's probably what most people use in this context, which is correct here. And so it just gets more and more accurate as you go. So we're going to subtract this, square this, come back down. And now as I do that second call to math, it knows once I've done one power call, I probably want power again next. So again, power moved from the second item to the top. And so again, the more and more context you have, the more and more accurate this is getting. Oh, I meant longitude though. Longitude, square them. Need to fix this, it's not an object. It should be a double. Missing parentheses. Cool, now I've done this. I can return my distance, and I should be good to go. And now I can do find all references. And you may know that find all references is now different now. Rather than being a plain text list of my references, we've now colorized it. In addition to the colorization, we allow you to group your results in here. So you can make it definition only, you can group it by project and definition, and for those of you who use this stuff a lot, there's this keep results. So if you're doing a big refactoring where you need to keep those final references results while doing other final references operations, we won't override those anymore. You can now keep this open as a tab and continue to do other final references as you go. Now, oh, this is why. I sent in the wrong things here, guys. Yeah, okay. All right, so now that I've gone here, I'm going to show one of the top requested refactorings from you guys. So as I selected this, here we go. I'm going to convert this to a for each loop. All right, so a ton of people have asked for the ability to convert a link query to a for each, vice versa. This whole family convert link queries, link methods, because link is difficult for people to learn, especially if you're new to C#. It's also difficult to debug, people have been asking for this forever, and we're happy to announce we've started working on all of them. So this is the first one that we've done in Visual Studio 2017 15.8 Preview 1. You can now convert link query query expressions into for each loops. And so I can do that here. Now that I've done that, I'm going to notice that I'm calling geocode helpers twice here. So I'm going through calculating all my distances twice. Wouldn't it be great if instead in this for each loop, if I had the index, and I could return the index of the stop that had the minimum distance maybe later. But how do I go from a for loop to a for each loop? Or for each to a for loop? Well, now with control dot, I can convert my for each to a for, and now I have access to an index to continue using that later. For those of you who went to Mads and Dustin's C# talk yesterday, what I'm doing next should not be unfamiliar, where now instead of returning just the distance, I'm going to return my index as well. I'm going to come up here and do that. So do this. I'm going to name them. Now as I come back down here, oops, sorry guys, a little laggy. Now as I come here, I'm going to do order by instead, because now I have a list of, or an IEnumerable of tuples that have the index of my stop and the distance. So now I'm going to give this a func. I'm going to order it by the distance. And then I'm just going to grab the first one. Now that I've done that, I can delete all this mumbo jumbo and just get the index of that stop that was at the min. And voila, now you've seen how you can use these refactorings to continue to move through your code and change it around as you go. All right, so that was a lot. What did you just see? Oh, sorry, okay. That was a lot of what you just saw. The first thing I showed was Visual Studio IntelliCode. IntelliCode is that first foray into AI-assisted technology to help you write better code faster. You can download it today. A couple questions that people have had about it is, what is it trained on? The initial base model is trained off of 2,000 open source C# repos. It's just the base initial model. As you all hopefully download the extension and use it, we're going to collect telemetry on how good our model is. Basically, we're just going to collect telemetry. Did you use the things we recommended? And then as we iterate the model by updating the extension, we'll be able to tell, which version had the best success. And so please download that today, try it out, let us know how it's going. We would love to improve IntelliSense. And the other things that you saw is a handful of the refactorings that we've been doing. So we have that first initial push in the for each to link family that we've done. We have the conversion between for each loops and for loops back and forth. You can change method signature. You've been able to do that for a while, but just in case you didn't know about it, and then you can generate a method.
All right, so Casey has done a lot of coding. I don't know if any of y'all were paying attention to the live unit testing, but it still says she's all passing. But I work with Casey a lot, and it's making me a little nervous how much he just added. So I'm going to do some extra stress testing on her code here. And so even though all her tests are passing, I'm going to try and break one. Basically what she's doing with one of her tests is she's checking to make sure it gets the right stop. So I'm going to create a fake stop that should override the one that she's expecting.
Because it's closer, right?
Because it's closer. But I also need to check that it's closer. And I don't really want to do that middle school geometry distance formula on my own. So I'm going to go ahead and go to her calculate distance formula. And I'm going to select all of this with Alt-Shift+, which is going to expand my selection progressively as I click it every time. So
yeah,
thank you.
That's right.
So, as I'm sure that gentleman in the back knows, if you go too far, you can also use Alt-Shift- to contract your selection. So now you can, ooh, another one from over there, yes. So now that we have this selected, we're going to use Control-EE to send it to the interactive window here. The C# interactive window is a REPL that's going to allow us to interact and work with this method without having to change anything in our actual code base. So we see that we've sent our calculate distance formula here. I'm going to grab some latitude and longitudes, both of the convention center where we are, the original stop that Casey expected, and my new stop latitude and longitude. So by pasting those in and hitting enter, it recognizes those, and we're gonna go ahead and start testing to make sure that my stop is, or the new stop rather, is closer than Casey's stop. So we're gonna go for convention center. As you notice,
distance called method.
Oh, method first. Thank you.
I got you.
I give Casey's a hard time, but she is pretty great to work with. So we're gonna calculate our distance formula here. You'll notice that we actually have IntelliSense in the C# interactive window as well. And what's even cooler is it's not just the suggestions, we also allow you to filter here. So you have the full capability of IntelliSense, not only within the editor, but within the C# interactive window. So let me get back here. With control space, for those of you who have ever gotten rid of IntelliSense accidentally, control space will just bring it right back for you. So calculate distance formula, and we're gonna do convention center dot lat, convention center dot lon, my stop dot lat, and my stop dot lon. At this point, if I were at the end of this statement, I could just press enter, but because I still have this parentheses at the end, I'm gonna use control enter to force submission. So we get this great distance here of about 0.002. I'm not sure what the units are on that, but we're gonna work with it. I could sit here and retype everything I just did, but with new stop, but instead I'm gonna use Alt up to just use the history of my interactive window. So now I can just go back and edit new stop. And again, since I'm in the middle, I'll do control enter. And in fact, it looks like the latitude and longitudes that I want to put into my fake stop are in fact closer and should ideally make your test fail. So we're going to use control T to navigate to our stops for stops for location. Again, we have camel case matching in our go-to. So we're gonna go ahead and hit enter. Let me clear this out. And here we just have a list of JSON objects representing our different stops. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this fake stop that I created earlier today. And I'm just gonna go ahead and paste it into the file here. Now, unfortunately, it looks like we have some escape characters that made their way in. Really unfortunate. I could go through and delete them one by one, but I'm actually gonna leverage some of our new support that's coming, that is multi-caret selection and carets. So I'm going to select the quotation mark and backslash. What I'm gonna do now is with Alt-Shift-Insert, pro tip for keyboard user or laptop users, make sure to turn your function key off. This has gotten me every time. So if you'll give it a second.
See at the bottom, it's finding the substring.
Yeah. So remember to turn your function key off before you attempt this. So take two, with Alt-Shift-Insert, it's going to match and add a selection and caret at every matching place. So as I continually hit Alt-Shift-Insert is going to add these selections here. And with a single keystroke, they're all gone. If I decide to go back and I want to edit these fields, I can even add new, test appending like that. With Control Z, it's all undone. So we're going to take escape to go back just to our single. I'm going to go to the end and grab these last two escape characters. And again, I could go through Alt-Shift-Insert and progressively add them one by one. Or because I'm really sure that this character combination shouldn't be anywhere in this file, I'm going to go for Control-Insert, and it's going to grab all of them at once. So again, with one keystroke of delete, they're all gone.
You don't have to go to VS Code to do this anymore.
I know.
It's VS, yeah.
Just for the one last little shortcut that's coming, we did take the key binding of Alt-Click to be able to add cursors wherever you'd like. So for example, I could add one here and here and here. And again, if I were to start typing, they would all work just like that. So now that I have this fake stop in here, we have one, but maybe you want to create multiple fake stops. We're going to go ahead and I want to actually grab this longitude for use later in my next fake stop.
Did you just copy it?
I did copy it. I copied it. And so I'm going to do Alt-Shift+ to grab this object again. And instead of copying and pasting, I'm just going to use Control-D to duplicate that, add a comma here. And then that longitude that I grabbed earlier, I'm just gonna paste in right there. So with Control D, I can actually duplicate my selection and it won't override my, what I've copied before, what's in my clipboard, so that it's saved for what I'd like to do after a duplication.
And you can do it for a single line as well, right?
Yes, I can do it for a single line. So as you see here, maybe I want a bunch of location types or route IDs. If I just put my cursor on that line, we can do Control D as many times as we'd like. I'll go ahead and undo those. And then if we go back to the geocode helpers, or actually, let me go back to the unit tests that Casey has. As we scroll up, we see that it's triggering a run of her tests, and lo and behold, I've broken everything.
No.
Cool. So now that I'm extra sure that her things work correctly, I'm going to go ahead.
You want to show how you know it's the failed result?
Sorry. How we know it's the failing result, if we go here to our live unit testing and we actually hover over our test here, let's see if this will work. We're going to try and zoom it. Here we are.
She's way better at that than I am.
We all have our strengths. So we actually see here our assert failed because it expected 1_1050, and you can see our stop ID of testing is actually right there. So we were able to verify that, yes, it was what I did that broke her test, which means that Casey did everything wonderfully. So
that's a first.
So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these fake stops really fast. Get rid of those so that Casey's code will work properly as we expect. And now that we're in a clean state, I know I give Casey a hard time, but I'm going to go ahead and just commit this for her so that she doesn't have to call me when things go wrong. She can just look back and be like, okay, here's where things were working properly. So I just want to draw your attention really quickly to the status bar down here. We've had this for,
You gotta click.
I got
It'll
click.
get you.
Hold on. All right, so we're going to zoom down here. Here in the status bar. So for those of you who are working in Git repositories, I hope you've used this. The build 2018 all the way on the right-hand side indicates that that's your branch switcher. You can use it to quickly switch between any local branches. As well, in the past year, we've made a huge effort to improve performance in Git as well. So if you check out a remote branch, you should see it works a lot faster. We've gotten rid of that blocking dialog to get you working a lot faster. Here is your repository name. This represents the files that have been changed, and unfortunately I drew over it, but this represents the number of commits that are only local. So if that number grows really high, maybe it's a good indicator that you should push those out so that they're not just on your local machine and they're up safe in the cloud. So we said we had 3 files here. One other thing that I just wanted to show you was that with Control S open bracket, Control open bracket S, not quite.
This one, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Control open bracket S. You'll notice that it syncs our Solution Explorer with our active document. Unit test was one of the things we had changed, and you'll see that it has this red check mark by it. You'll see that 3 things in our Solution Explorer actually have this red check mark. So besides just our little glyph down here that represents the number of files changed, you can also keep track of that with your Solution Explorer. If you decide to click that little pencil, it'll take you directly to the changes page in Team Explorer, and I'm just going to go ahead and make a commit here so that Casey will always have a reference point. We'll go ahead and save all of these, and as you notice, this little icon down here went from 0 to 1, indicating that we now have 1 local commit that's waiting to be pushed up. So things that we showed you super quickly, multi-carat editing and selection. This is coming in one of the 15.8 releases. Keep your ears to the ground. You will be getting a blog post from me about it. So we're super excited to introduce that to y'all. This is just a short intro to what we're planning for that. As well, we showed you the C# interactive window, which allows you to experiment with your code without mucking up your code base. We have some shortcuts here to help you out. The track active document in Solution Explorer, which is Control open bracket Control S, I kept hitting close bracket. And finally, just a quick little tour of some of our Git integration. We really hope that performance has been better for you in this regard, and if not, please let us know. As we said, performance is a priority, and we want to make sure you're as productive as possible.
All right, so now that we're back here, you may have noticed these blue dots. And so these blue dots, if I hover over them, it's letting me know that I should use var instead of the explicit type. Which, what? Yeah, so that's code style configuration and enforcement that we've added to Visual Studio 2017. We're going to allow individuals to configure their own code style, so you can come up to Tools Options. I just use the search box up here to find it, type code style, and then you can see the C# code style. Inside here, there are tons of different rules that you can configure to enforce different settings on your code base. For example, you can see here I have my var preferences. I can choose to prefer var. I can choose to prefer the explicit type, should I prefer, and I can choose at what severity level I want to enforce them at. So if I zoom in here, you can see I can choose to make and have no text decoration at all in the editor and have no enforcement at all with none. I can choose to make it a suggestion, which were those little dots, which are by default gray. I've made them blue in this demo to match the suggestion icon. A warning is the green squiggle, or you can make them a compiler error if you want. Currently, if you set it as an error, it will not break your build, but it's under active development right now, so that if you want to be a real stickler, you can make it so people can't build if they violate your code style rules. All right, so that's for my individual machine. So then I could come here and I can come on double, press Control dot, and fix my violations of var and the explicit type at the document, project, or solution level here, and just enforce my code style on this file. But that's not very team-like, huh? So wouldn't it be better if my team had coding conventions that could travel with the source? And so in Visual Studio 2017, we also added support for editor config. Editor config is an open source file format. We worked with the editor config community to figure out how to extend it to work for .NET code style. And so when we did that, you can now see we have all of these .NET code style rules that will exist in an editor config file. And so you can choose how you want to prefer them with true or false, and then at what level. So you can make them suggestions, errors, warnings, etc. Editor config works at the directory level. So if you look over here in Solution Explorer, I have this one at the solution level. I can choose to override that at a different subdirectory level if I want. So if I want my unit test project to have all style rules off, because if you write a unit test, that's good enough, you can do so. Or if you have that legacy project that everyone's afraid to touch or clean up or anything, you can turn off all rules in that one. Or if it has different style rules because you decided to see the ways of var, you can now configure that as well. So if I want to add an editor config, so say for this project, bus info, I want to add a new editor config file to change my preferences here. I can right-click, add new item. And if I search in here, I can type editor config. And you can see now in Visual Studio 2017 version 15.7, we provide you with some default templates. So we provide a simple .NET one that has those .NET code style rules in them. We have a default one that's language agnostic and will work in every editor that supports editor config. And then the magic thing in here is Visual Studio IntelliCode. So if you saw this on the Future of VS talk, I'm just going to go through it again here. But as part of Visual Studio IntelliCode, and as we're trying to bring smarts into the editor, this is going to allow you, if you use this template, which unfortunately it's not out yet, but you should sign up to follow Visual Studio IntelliCode to figure out when this is going to launch. But it's going to allow you to generate an editor config based on your current team settings. And so right now, it's generating an editor config by going through my team code base and figuring out what code styles we do use. So it's finding those predominant rules and styles that are used and generating an editor config that mirrors those preferences. So you can see here, here are my new line options. Here are my var options that it detected. And here are like expression body ones, for example. And if we meet as a team and decide, oh sure, it inferred these, but we decide to change our mind and expression body members for methods should be true, we can do that. So now as I go back to this code file that Alice and I both partied on, you might be dying right now by seeing, I have the formatting differences here where I'm using K and R in the first if and almond braces in the second if. I'm using doubles here in the explicit type, but all it takes is a quick scroll up to see here I'm using either or, like, slapdash coding here. And so wouldn't it be great if I could fix all formatting violations here, as well as all these different code style violations. And so I can open the error list to really drive this home. And so if I come to, I can filter, by the way, fun stuff. You can filter your error list to different scopes, so I can show only the errors in my current document. As I come in here, you can see I have violations of all different shapes and sizes here. And so what we're working on right now, which I'm going to show you a prototype of, is one-click code cleanup. So it's like one of the top things people have asked for when we provided editor config enforcement and configuration. And so we've extended format document so that we will clean up all code style errors and formatting errors in your current document. And so I can just do Control-KD, and it fixed all of those code style violations and made it adhere to that editor config team rules that I have set. Yeah. And so now it's like so much nicer to read because now it's all consistently formatted rather than being all over the place. And so yeah, that was something we're working on. It's not out yet, but that one-click code cleanup is, you just saw it in the prototype stages, so hopefully, fingers crossed, coming soon. Oh, yep, here we go. All right, so what did you just see? You just saw you can configure code style on your individual machine by going to the Tools Options page for it. That will only work locally. If you want to configure it for your team, you can use an editor config file. Editor config, again, works at the directory level, so you can put it at your solution directory to enforce it to all projects within there, or you can change it at different project level directories to have different ones across your code base. We're working on, so right now, format document only fixes formatting issues. We're working on a prototype where we will extend this to fix all your code style violations as well. So stay tuned for that.
Right. Back to Casey's machine. All right. So I know I mentioned earlier we were going to take you on what I'm calling the tour de source. This is just going to be a quick grab bag of some of our latest and greatest refactoring. So as Casey said before, one of the top asks we get from you guys is to add more and more refactoring. So I'm going to take you guys on a quick tour of some of our favorites that we've introduced in the past year. So let's go.
And some of the top ones you all have asked for.
Yeah. So first thing we're going to do is we know that you like to use these suggestions and refactorings to get to know new language features. So I'm going to go ahead and go to get arrivals here with this test. And we'll notice we have this suggestion right here with control dot. We're just going to control dot everything. You'll see that we can actually use a collection initialization. That's a tongue twister. To use this new language feature to actually use collection initialization. So that's all fixed. We're also going to head over to our get arrival times. I know all these things just off the top of my head. I'm sure you would look through these as you're going through your code base. But as Casey mentioned earlier, we have this great tuple, which is in C#7. Down here, you'll notice that we have item 1 and item 2. Because these are both in view, we can see that if I click on item 1, it also highlights root so that we know that those are correlated to each or connected to each other. But what if you initialized your tuple way up ahead? You've got to scroll through lines and lines of code. That's not great. So instead, we can explicitly name our tuple elements like this. I know, root, root, stop, stop. And as you notice, item 1 and item 2 got those blue dots underneath. So now if we look at what they're asking us to do, it says, oh, you have an explicitly provided name. Go ahead and use that. So I'm going to replace those in both cases. And now, as I do that, you should notice that those blue dots migrated up to info up here. So let's see what it says. It says deconstruct variable declaration. So what this is telling us is info is never actually used anywhere. We're only ever using the tuple elements and not the tuple itself. So if we go ahead and deconstruct it, you'll notice that it got rid of info, and now we have this nice readable stop.id instead of info.item1.id, because I don't know about you, but this seems a lot cleaner. So those are just 2 ways that our suggestions can actually help you learn about new language features. I'm going to go ahead and open up our error list here. It looks like we have a warning. It doesn't look like it's in the current document. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the entire solution. We'll see here that we actually have unreachable code detected, which I'm going to double click on to navigate to. And we'll notice that this line here is slightly grayed out. This is our indication in the context of the editor to also let you know which lines of code are unreachable. So in this case, I'm not sure what Casey was expecting here, but she's never going to see this log. So
I was wondering why I never saw that line.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah, so with Control Dot, we can easily just remove that. Hope you didn't need that for real, Casey. As we continue onwards and upwards through this file, we have this if, else, if. Again, not really sure what Casey's doing here. I'm going to see what we can do, and we can convert it to a switch, which I think will make it a lot easier to understand just what in the world Casey was trying to do here. As we move through, she's just returning this empty string, so I'm not sure she knew what she was doing either, but it's okay. We'll fill it in. Again, we still have this light bulb, so I'm just going to Control Dot again, and you'll notice that we actually have the capability to add missing cases. HTTP status code has a ton of them, so maybe we don't want to utilize it at this point. But for enums that have fewer members, this is a really great way to make sure you're covering all your bases or cases. So there's that. As we continue moving forward, let me scroll over so we can get this into view. We notice that string.format also has some suggestion, and we can convert to interpolated string. For those of you who have worked with this, even after you have 2 or 3 variables to add in here, it can get really annoying to sort of match up where they're going to be in your string. So instead, we can convert to interpolated so that we know exactly where code is going to be within that string. Casey has another one here that we're going to fix. And as we continue moving upwards.
Upwards and onwards.
Upwards and onwards. You'll see that right here, it's a little hard to see because of the underscore, but we have a suggestion here. We can add accessibility modifiers. Most of the things here have that explicitly done, so let's go ahead and add a private as we move up. Control Dot, we can add a read-only modifier because we understand that this field is only ever read, it's never changed. And for this one, we can actually order our modifiers. So this goes back to sort of that team conventions. Casey's team likes to have the static before read-only, but we sort of flubbed it here and switched those. So we're gonna go ahead and switch those around so that it's all nice and pretty and consistent with our style. As we look, we can also add, if we select these two, and if we select these 2 properties and do Control Dot, we can actually,
Yeah, I've selected the full.
Sorry guys, gotta select all of this. With Control Dot, we can actually generate this constructor quite easily. Or if you're like me sometimes, you've written all these down, you don't wanna have to try and select just the ones you want. If you're in this blank space underneath and you hit Control Dot and generate constructor, this handy dialog pops up to let you quickly choose what you want to be a part of the constructor. And last but certainly not least, we have this public interface here as well. And with Control Dot, we can actually just move that to its own file so that this one stays nice and pretty, just the way we like it. So those were just those were just a few of the refactorings that we've added for you. Those were some of the most popular ones that we've heard from the community that were really important to add. We're adding more and more and more every release. So reach out to us. This great feedback button here is a wonderful way to let us know which of these are top of mind to you. And you can also file issues or upvote issues on the Rosalind GitHub to let us prioritize the refactorings that are most important to you. And I realized looking ahead at my slide that I have one more thing to show you. We actually also have variable name suggestions. So if I go here, oh boy, haha. So if we add one more parameter here, for example, if I want to add a list of addresses, you'll notice.
Add your using.
Oh, got to add my using, control dot. See, it's helping me out here. So now that I have address, you'll notice that it should automatically suggest a name of addresses, which,
you want to zoom?
oh, let me zoom in here for y'all in the back. You'll notice it suggested addresses, which, okay, kind of cool. It just added an ES at the end. But the cooler thing is that if we do something like person, it actually suggests the cool, oh, man, that click will get you. So if we zoom here, you'll actually notice that it's smart. It utilizes the humanizer open source to actually pluralize it in the weird English way that is people. So hopefully that can help you out. All right, and with that, as we said, we have many refactorings coming more and more often, but Casey's gonna show you how you can get your hands dirty with actually creating your own.
Awesome. All right, so as Allison showed, a bunch of those refactorings, and in fact, a lot of the ones she just showed were contributed by like you all, by community members. The Rosalind repo, or the Rosalind project, which is the open source project where we re-architected the C# and Visual Basic compiler, is open source. And as part of that re-architecture, we provided an open source API over the compiler. So anyone could write their own code-focused tool or technology. And so people have worked with us and gotten those refactorings built in because they were so important to them. If you don't want to do that, which makes sense, you can come and report a problem or provide a suggestion up here via, oh, come on, oh, well, Allison's way better than me, but there's this, next to the flag, there's the send feedback figure. Just click that person and send us that suggestion, or go to the Rosalind repo and file it there.
Casey and I guarantee that we personally help go through the feedback that comes through that tool, so it's not just a black hole.
It's a good way to get us. All right, so, in here, you may have noticed as Allison was just going through my file and slaughtering me in cleanup, that I'm guilty as charged of debugging by logging. And before committing this, because I have a ton of log lines in here, like a ton, I probably want to remove them all. Instead of like removing all of them or filing a bug on the Rosalind repo to write something to remove all of these, you can use our APIs to write your own analyzer here. And writing an analyzer is super easy. I know it seems intense because it's like compiler tech, et cetera. But if I can do it, you can do it. And so here, I've put it up on GitHub, this example exactly. And so you can see.
Hold on, 1 second.
Sorry, you can't see that. Maybe not.
Give us
it's just
1
slow.
second, guys.
You can see my tab. Oh, click it.
I can't.
You can do it.
I can't. I think we're frozen temporarily. Give us 1 second while we try and get this back.
Anyways, the whole point is I wrote this analyzer in about 10 lines of code, and the fix was maybe 15 lines of code. And so can I go back to Visual Studio at least in here?
No, your screen is unfortunately frozen.
All right, let's just
We're going to do
plug
a quick swap. Ready, guys? In 3, 2, 1, and we are live.
All right, so, okay. we can just do this now. Okay, so you can see here, this is an analyzer. This whole chunk up here is essentially boilerplate. It's just letting you put all the strings in for what you want to say, like, oh, you should remove this or you should add this. Then we just register a callback here. So I'm looking for invocation expressions. Zoom in so you can see it. And if I do get that, then I'm going to run this callback. And then here's my callback, which did all that diagnostic effort where it's like, oh, you have, we get my semantic info for my invocation expression. We find out it's a method. We get my method name. We see if it's log line. And then we report the diagnostic, which reporting the diagnostic just means you find where it is in the document and you put that squiggle underneath it or the dots underneath it. Once you're there, then you have to write a fix, which the fix is only slightly more complicated. Not really, but OK, you can come here. Again, you have a bunch of boilerplate at the top. I grab that diagnostic information. It's only really complicated here if you have multiple diagnostics that you're reporting at once for one fix, but we only have one, so it's pretty simple. I'm going to have this callback here, and then voila, in 3 lines of code, I'm just going to figure out where that invocation expression is that had that log line. And then I'm just going to get that syntax tree from it, remove that node, return that syntax tree in a new document, and return it. And when I do that, then I can just come back here, which again, that was like 15 lines of code. Nope. Oh, how do you do that? Here. Control dot.
Oh, nope.
OK, well.
She thought I was better, I'm not.
Hopefully you can see this, but if not, it's offering to remove my log line, and so I can remove my log lines here. And so this is a custom analyzer that I wrote myself. Sure, it's not like production worthy. We're not going to ship this in Roslyn, but it's enough that I can get productive in 25 lines of code. And so like the light bulb actions are all built in for you. You don't have to do any of that. You just write those couple snippets of analysis, and then you have this. And I can fix it at the document, project, or solution level here. So, and that's, I didn't have to do any extra effort for that. And I can come in here, see the bajillion log lines I have in this file, and fix all of them in this file, and now they're all gone. And so if there is some refactoring that's really holding you back from being productive in Visual Studio, we have the means for you to extend our API system or use our compiler APIs to write your own, and you can distribute it as an extension inside of your team or as a NuGet package and share it with everyone. Yeah.
So we promised you guys a nice handy-dandy resources guide. So these are all great links to things that we've either shown you today or resources to help you be more productive. So Casey actually wrote our first one, our VS 2017 Productivity Guide. You'll find a lot of the things we mentioned today in that document. If you have performance issues, again, we want to hear about them. So please report them through aka.ms/ we're typoing there. There's a /VSPerf there. If you want more information on editor config or refactoring docs, we have those. Again, join the IntelliCode preview as well as the live share preview. And for more information on how to write your own analyzers, you can go to Getting Started with Rosalind. So if nothing else, download Visual Studio 2017. Ideally,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Use it. Wait, quick show of hands. Who has Visual Studio 2017 installed today? Oh,
Woo,
heck yeah.
yeah.
All right, who's on the latest? Who's on 15.7 already? Oh, heck yeah.
Okay,
all
so
right.
y'all are going to have fun. Here's some of our related sessions. These should be up shortly. And finally, Casey and I would love to know what you thought of our session. So please evaluate us and let us know how we continue to get better so that next year will be even more entertaining. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.